Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm here on behalf of myself, Denise Doyle, and just my own background is originally in fine art painting, so I was trained as a painter, and almost 20 years ago now I became interested in the relationship between art and technology, and that sort of kept me busy for nearly 2 decades. And I'm talking on behalf of Tara Baoth-Mooney from Smart Lab, and she's an artist in residence there at the University College Dublin. And importantly, she's also, she's not a professional Irish folk singer, but she has her own folk practice, and she sings in her native tongue, Irish Gaelic, and the significance will become apparent during the presentation. So yeah, Tara and I actually met in India during this cultural exchange workshop that we both participated in 2011, and this is the basis of the talk today. So it's entitled Digital Voices as Cultural Encounter, Intangible Folk Art Practices of West Bengal. And well, I guess you could say that we were beneficiaries of this project called the EGG Project, the Ethno-Magic Going Global project, which was is a project developed by a really amazing organisation called Banglalnatak.com, and it's a European funded project, but it's also in relation, in partnership with the Planet Art Exchange in Liverpool and UNESCO. And the idea is, well, there's a number of different objectives to the project. Obviously, we were only involved with a very small amount of that. But essentially, the project was to preserve oral traditions within West Bengal, and to support the rich folk art forms within the area, whether to sort of bring it to both a national and a global audience. And in the highlighted text, it was also to provide an exchange with Western contemporary artists with the local artists. And we were really the last 5 people who participated. There were 2 other groups. One, I think there were 2 meetings, one in the UK and one in Italy, and we went as a group to India. And this was our group. We didn't really know each other. A couple of people knew each other before we arrived. And really, it was billed as a cultural exchange workshop with really nothing anticipated as an outcome, which was quite intriguing. And so we essentially had a 4 or 5 day workshop, including a 2-day trip to a village, which I'll talk about. And in the end, there was a 1-day performance. So the artists came from the UK, Ireland and Italy, and I won't go through them there. So we expected to work with a group called the Chow Dancers, and you can see in the yellow area they were very quite specifically from this area of Purulia, but actually we ended up working with 3 folk art practices, which ended up being really, really interesting. The Bowl and Fakirs, and they came from this area of Nadia in the dark blue, and also the Jamur, which they're from the Bankura area next to Purulia. Just one note about Banglalnatak. They're a really impressive organisation, over 60 people working for them, and they really build themselves as agents for change. And so it wasn't just about culture and developing tourism within the area, but they were sort of trying to address issues of equality, etc., etc. So the reach was really quite large. So, well, just to frame our experience, we were looking for some funding or some ideas around funding on our return from the workshop, and the AHRC in the UK, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, had put out last year an emerging theme entitled Translating Cultures. And we were really interested in this whole idea, obviously, of how diverse cultures understand and communicate with each other, because essentially in our workshop we didn't have a shared language, a shared oral language, but there were certainly shared languages, particularly that of music, which was really quite interesting. But so yeah, looking at this idea of translation, then we also wanted to kind of take this idea of translation, can also seek to unveil the tangible from a seemingly intangible experience. So this became our theme. So we also wanted to add that the idea of cultural encounter can also be a mutually enlightening experience for all parties involved. So I can't really talk about Jimur or the Chow, but I'm just going to show you a couple of images from them. Essentially the Jimur, a small group of musicians. He was a very famous singer in Bengal, worked with 3 female dancers, and essentially the folk music and dance was a celebration of the rural ways of life, essentially. And these are the women on the day of the performance, and a lot of their movements, very, very simple movements, were around the kind of celebration of the harvest and the celebration of domestic village life. So the Chow dancers, again, well, they're quite opposite. They would perform dances around the big Indian epics. They traditionally wore masks, very particular to this region. And of course, this is Ganesh, the elephant god. Got a few images here. We collated everything. Anyway, very interesting. Costumes were amazing. Lots of animal and obviously goddess characters, and they sort of played a number of performances. And yeah, the masks were really incredible, and I haven't really got time to go into really the background, or certainly what the Chow dancers felt the background to this was. I've just got a short video that we captured during the performance. I'll just show it. Just a short clip. This is, again, I can't really go into this part of the workshop. This is Renata. She was a dancer and she previously met the Chows in Liverpool, so they'd started to have this sort of cultural exchange already. But that is another presentation. So really, on to the group that we really became really interested in, which is the Bowls and Fakirs. So they're spiritual practitioners, particular to the Bengal region. Originally wandering musicians, not all wandering now, but certainly have a 500-year heritage in the region. They sang and continue to sing about humanism and brotherhood. And well, on the left is the bowl wearing orange. He's a very well-known singer, Arjun. And on the right is Babu, and he is a fakir. And it was quite interesting when we were talking to them and we did various interviews. They said only the educated people made a distinction between them, because they saw no difference between themselves. Obviously the bowls come through the Hindu tradition and the fakirs come through the Sufi and Islam. So this huge sign proves that this project was European funded. And yeah, so part of this was to obviously support the infrastructure of preserving and maintaining a number of different traditions. So they developed resource centres, in some of the villages, and this was in the village called Gobana that we visited. It was about a 6-hour trip from Calcutta on the Bangladeshi border. And so this resource centre became a centre point really for the Bowls and Fakirs to come every morning and every evening to come and sing. It was their spiritual practice under the guru, which is Babu's brother. And Tara and Senan actually on our return made a series of soundscapes incorporating a song, an a cappella song of Babu, a song about God. And I'm just going to play this for a couple of minutes and just go through some of the images. Hopefully it will work. So a Bangladeshi student of mine translated the song Hali Hali, Ali Ali.
খাজা তোমার প্রেমে আমি হলাম দেওয়ানা পাগল হলাম আমি হলাম মস্তানা ও পাগল হলাম আমি হলাম মস্তানা আল্লাহ আল্লাহ আলী আলী আল্লাহ আল্লাহ আলী আলী খাজা আসে
This is the guru of the village, Oman. This is one of the instruments, the Doyle artistic instrument. Couldn't resist a couple of these images of village life. Okay, and there's myself and Senna and Tara at the village. And well, I had to put this image in. You know, in our abstract we talk about this idea of cultural encounter, and obviously the cultural encounter is also historical. And I was really struck myself, having a real interest in Indian philosophy for many years. And I'd read Rabindranath Tagore, who's on the left, his poetry really from my 20s. And I was just really surprised when I started to read the poetry and the songs of the Bowls and Fakirs, how similar it was. And, you know, of course, I discovered how inspired Rabindranath Tagore had been from the Bowls and Fakirs. And I love this image of what a cultural encounter Rabindranath Tagore and Einstein. So, well, when we were at the village, both myself and Tara thought, well, is there such a thing as a female bowl? And yes, of course, there is. And they arranged for us to meet this incredible female bowl, Shabadra, on the way back from Calcutta. She just opened her home to us, and we sat there. She made tea and just started to sing. Whilst making the tea. Yeah, very short one. But then I've got a clip of her. Again, she just started to sing. She has the ektara, which is the single-stringed instrument. I'll just let that run. still gives me shivers every time I listen to that. Really, really wonderful. And well, Tara and Senan were able to stay in West Bengal for 2 or 3 weeks longer than ourselves, who'd just come over for the workshop. So they went back to visit Subhadra, and I have just a little bit of filming of really, I can't really work out what's going on, but Subhadra is just, she's really quite hysterical, sort of laughing and making up these songs, apparently, as they kind of play together. So I'm just going to show that. Play too much more of that. And I just got one more clip of the final performance, where the so this was a performance. I can't go into the details of it, but I just wanted to show a small clip of Tara singing in Gaelic, Irish Gaelic, with one of the bowls. Stop there because I was going to give myself 5 minutes to talk about digital media interfaces, which I've only got 2 minutes to talk about now. So to just go back to this idea of translation and this whole idea of extending the idea of translation even to ideas from one culture to another, one medium to another. Again, we wanted to say translation can also seek to unveil the tangible from the seemingly intangible, and then we just wanted to put forward 2 ideas. I mean, we're still so much at the beginning or the start of taking this idea, but perhaps it echoes something of what Helena was talking about earlier. I wanted to take this idea of the tangible and intangible and to look at perhaps developing some interactive textile interfaces. This isn't the best of images, it's one of the images from Gorbana, but I was really struck by Subhadra's rows of saris, and she'd been given these she'd been gifted these saris at different stages and pivotal stages of her life as a bowl. And yeah, the tactile nature of textiles lend themselves to an interactive experience. And this would build on a project of Tara's, well, it's an ongoing archival project of Tara's entitled Diary of Our Daily Threads. And her work she'd done with this project, where it was really around how cloth has the potential to evoke the memory of previous wearers and handlers, and this human tendency to have this attachment to textiles. So Tara had done this project a year or so ago, where the viewer was invited to touch various textiles, and they triggered stories, video stories about the objects, which I can't go into. So she writes here, this work explores how people use textile objects to bring intangible experiences and emotions back into the tangible realm, so it's a kind of two-way thing. The second area, which was really kind of Tara's realm, around looking at this idea of the interactive audio visualization, and she's been in discussions with a group called Noisefold, who have work with a kind of participatory audience. And I did have a video, but I won't go into that now. But really, Tara had chosen this as an example because she was the performer. She understood how the bowl and fakirs worked. And she said, really, you know, there was never a controlled element to their performance. It was all around kind of participation. And Noisefold kind of explore kind of the visualization of audio, but also around this sort of liveness element of responding to live sound and visuals. Okay, I'm not going to show that. So yeah, we kind of very pleased to be here. It's been a very different conference to the one I would normally go to, and it's been really, really interesting. And yeah, happy to hear people's thoughts and responses to our project. Thank you.
Thank you.